All right, here we go. Another brand new edition of the Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. Coming up in just a couple minutes, the one and only Al Morganti is going to join us. You see him on Flyers pre and post game live on NBC Sports Philly. You hear him on the radio on the Angelo Catati, the morning team. So we'll talk to Alphonse coming up in just a couple of minutes. I had a chance to work with Al. He was so much fun to work with. Always playing practical jokes. As a matter of fact, in 2010, when the Flyers were on that playoff run to the finals against Chicago, in the round in the conference final, where they took on the Montreal Canadiens, I was at the station. I was at WIP at the time, and I had all my stuff there. I was getting ready to fly to Montreal for games 3 and 4. And I had all my stuff on my desk in my office, including my passport. And I come to find out later that Al grabbed my passport and decided to doctor my passport. When did I find out? When I was standing in line in Montreal at the airport in customs, as I hand the passport to the customs agent, and the woman looks up at me and was like, had this look on her face, and I'm like, what? And she hands my passport back to me. I open it up, and on my picture is not my picture anymore. It's there. It's underneath a picture of Osama bin Laden. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So that's what I had to deal with Al. So he'll join us in just a couple minutes. Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live, and you got to download the Parx Sportsbook app. Go on the iPhone or Android App Store, download the app, check it out. No promo required. Just deposit. Your first bet is risk-free up to $500. It's real easy. This is not a complicated app to use. If you're a first-time sports bettor, it's simple to use. You'll be able to figure it out very easily. If you're a seasoned sports bettor, but you're looking for a better place to put your action, trust me, these guys are local. You can trust them. They're a company. They get the job done. They, easy deposit methods, fast payouts. It's all there. Easy to navigate the app and all the different features and ways you can get your money in, and play-by-play betting, same game parlays, player performances, money lines, props. It's all there. Futures, so much to bet on. In hockey, I love first to score and goal scores, exact scores, another one that I like to play. Plus, all different, alternate lines and stuff like that. So check it out. Again, your first bet's going to be risk-free up to $500. Just deposit. If you lose, you'll be refunded up your bet up to $500 on your first bet. Make sure you follow them on the social media channels as well. At Parx Sportsbook on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. There you will not only get great content and great shows that Parx Sportsbook was putting out with Rich Gannon and Mike Quick and Natalie and Sam and everybody. The OGs podcast with myself and Harry. Great stuff. Matt Alba doing interviews and stuff. All great stuff on there. So make sure you check that out. And you'll also get daily specials there as well. So, again, follow them on Twitter at Parx Sportsbook, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And you'll really enjoy the experience. It's great. And Tone is going to join us coming up after Al today. Tone's Takes will be back once again. But let's get right to him right now. He's in the waiting room, and he joins us right now on Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live from NBC Sports Philadelphia on Flyers pre- and post-game live. And from WIP, it is the one and only Al Morganti, one of my old coworkers. You know him from NBC Sports Philadelphia and Flyers pre- and post-game live. You know him from the radio as well, part of the Angelo Catati in the morning team. It is Al Morganti. Albert, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I am healthy and I'm ready to go. I'm not on anybody's list of unavailable, so here we go.
So you're not in protocol.
I've never been. I've been in any protocol for anything.
No, you're usually breaking all kinds of social protocol. But
yeah.
Al, there's so much to talk about because from this season that is now kind of off the rails again, from a 10-game winless skid to a 7-game point streak to a 5-game losing skid, it's been so up and down. What's kind of your assessment of what you've seen so far through the first 35, 36 games of the season?
Well, like you said, it's so hard without full lineups. It's disappointing. There's no. I mean, despite the fact they put together a bit of a win streak or a point streak, their winless streak was really crushing. The end of their West Coast trip was not good, and I think I'm most disappointed in the fact that the goaltending has held up, and the other end of the bargain has not held up. That's what's been most disappointing to me. I mean, if you came into this and said, you know what, if their goaltending holds up, they should be fine. So I'm not seeing development of players that I thought were going to come in. I'm also a bit confused because some of the plug and play players that were acquired, Ristolainen, I personally have no problems with. I know there's some up and down to his game, but it's what I expected. But the plug and play players were supposed to help you a whole lot. And despite the fact that Atkinson's played okay, it hasn't worked out. And of course, I'm beyond confused by the whole Ellis injury situation.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. Should he have just had a surgery? Is it a injury that requires surgery? Let's go back to the summer real quick because there was a lot of turnover. Al, you just alluded to it. Jake Voracek goes in that 1-1 for Atkinson. They bring in, a guy like Ryan Ellis in that trade for Nolan Patrick and Phil Myers, and he's only played 4 games. We see a lot of new faces, Derek Brassard, and a lot of guys that, as Chuck Fletcher referred to it, wore a letter on their jersey, and they brought a lot of character in. Why has it not paid dividends? Is it because of unavailability of the players, or is there still a chemistry issue here?
Well, obviously unavailability when you're talking about Ellis, and that's a big factor.
Big one. Yeah.
But to me, the bigger problem, if it's a problem, I mean, Ivan Provorov is a good player, but he hasn't turned into what you expected. You're not supposed to, at this point, at least from what he did very early, be talking about, well, he missed Niskanen and now Ellis isn't there. Well, it's supposed to be a guy that other players lean on, not that he depends on somebody else. That's really hurt. The fact that he hasn't developed into what they thought. Sanheim also. So I don't know that you can have much gripe with the moves that were made, aside from the fact, did you get damaged goods with Ellis? But even if you look at that, when you look on balance on what production did you lose? When you look at what those players have done since leaving. So, I mean, you can look at that. Atkinson's been fine to me. I mean, he was a streaky player coming in. He had some high energy to the team. So I have no issues there. Brassard maybe counted upon more than he should have been with what's happened. So to me, the issue isn't the people being brought in. The issues are Couturier, for whether it's health or whatever, has not had a Couturier-like season where he's in the mention for postseason awards. And Provorov has not stepped up to what I expected anyway. I think most people did. Sanheim hasn't been a step ahead. No big gripes, but not really a star, like a development the way you thought was going to happen. And to be totally honest, I mean, at this point, how many years you just keep counting on Giroux to be your best guy?
Yeah, he turns 34 yesterday.
Well, yeah, I mean, this has been, year after year. Like it looked like, okay, Couturier for a while was there, but here we are back to that, where he's your best guy. So you're not even at the Super Bowl Sunday, and it looks like off in the distance are the teams ahead of you if you go by winning percentage, and the story becomes, what are you gonna? Is the captain leaving at the end of the year? That's disheartening this early in a season.
Yeah, it is. The one thing I was told about Provorov, Al, is that at this point in his career, and like you alluded to in the beginning of his career and the trajectory he was on, he should not be partner dependent.
No,
and he has become very partner dependent.
And that shouldn't be. And you could sort of tell, but I am of no opinion that the curve for defensemen goes straight up. That doesn't happen. You go up, but this is further along now, and it's gone the other way. And I thought you usually see with those kind of defensemen, if you're going to be that star, there is an ability, and it's not an analytics thing or anything, to control the pace at which a game is played. When you're behind, when you're ahead, PK, whatever, to control that pace. And he hasn't got that to control the pace. It's always the same pace when they're 5-on-5. And his power play, ironically, it's slow. It appears that it oftentimes slows down a power play because he's so deliberate with it. Yeah. And who's to say it doesn't come along? I mean, Fowler was this highly regarded guy and turned into a very stable, very long-term defenseman in Anaheim. I thought the upside to Provorov was more than that, but that's a good thing to have in your organization, but it isn't as much as was expected here.
Yeah, and he's expected to be a true number one. And right now, on a good team now, he's probably a number 3. And you're right on the power play. He is too deliberate. He doesn't have a good enough handle. And the other thing with like he doesn't control a game. Now I'm going to throw some names out here that's probably unfair, but like a Drew Doughty did,
No.
or those guys Hedman controls every element of that ice when he's on it. And he's on it 26 minutes a night.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, pace. There's a
Yeah.
pace to a game that you decide we're ahead by 2, we're down by 2, it's 1, it's tied, it's whatever. This has to get out there, and that doesn't happen. It's the same. You can't question effort, but I mean, there's no inner clock to it, I guess, on this is what we have to do. Then and he's supposed to be a guy when things get iffy, when things start going left, that he brings it back to center, which is very confusing me, because I remember when he was his first year, when I would go on TV afterwards and say, he looks like the adult in the room already.
Mm-hmm.
When things started to get squirrely, he said, okay, give it to me. And it's gone the other way since then. And I don't know if he expects too much of himself when things are going on, but he has not been that guy to kind of settle everything down. There's no way that in his career you should have been saying last year, oh my goodness, Matt Niskanen. Well, Matt Niskanen's a very nice player, but
Yeah.
Hall of Fame,
Bobby Orr.
they call him Hall of Fame's not calling.
Yeah.
And now Braun's kind of been that guy to come in, and God, now Ellis looks like, oh my God, he never even really was here. It's like, well, if he was here, it'd be a whole lot better. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. The way it's supposed to be is some kid's supposed to be with Provorov, and they'd say, well, he'll come along because Provy will bring him along.
Yeah, that's interesting because I say that a lot. Niskanen's a nice player, but he's not a Hall of Famer. And the one thing about Provorov too is he's a guy that at this point should be controlling games, should be control. You need a guy that can go on the ice and make nothing happen.
Yeah,
Have what I call a quiet shift where nothing happens for your team, but nothing happens for the opposition. At a key point in the game, he jumps over the boards and nothing happens.
yeah,
You
it's
need
going
that.
to be. Yeah, it's going to be. He's going to come in. He's going to smother it. He's going to just
Yep.
smother the game, and that's kind of what you're missing. They're always in a scramble mode, and we saw this more earlier in the year when Alain Vigneault was still here. I guess cohesion would be the word. They didn't. Not that you need the Russian 5, that type of a system, but there was no element of there's a 5-man unit out there where the puck's going here, there, wherever. There was separation with your forwards and your defensemen. I think they got that back a little bit. So, I mean, there should be some hope to what's gone on, but it's pretty easy to point out and say, if Provorov had come along, if Ellis, whatever, if Konechny had turned into the goal scorer that you expected, if Couturier was healthy and played the role that he's supposed to play, things would be a lot different. Well, there's too many ifs to have what's going on. And the real crime is, I have no problem with the goaltending at all. I actually think the goaltending's been way above average. I got way out of Jones than I thought you were going to get.
Oh, big time.
Way more. And Carter, I mean, he made some huge saves, and I think been a pretty solid goaltender. I kind of feel for him. This is supposed to be the blossoming of his career, and if this had been a real Olympic year, he still might have been like in conversation for Team Canada. And to have that in a team performing at this level is really, really, that's a real waste of goaltending. And in this league, it's supposed to be the reverse. If you have good goaltending, even subpar is supposed to raise the level of play.
Yeah, they always say, show me good goaltending, I'll show you a good coach, right?
Yeah, coach got fired with good goaltending.
Yeah, it's weird. And they're not able to reap the rewards of how he's kind of regained his game and his form. You just mentioned Konechny. He's like the curious case of Benjamin Button. Can you explain to me what's going on with him? Because he's a guy, a couple of years ago, he had back-to-back 24-goal seasons. That second one, he did it in 69 games when it was cut short because of the pandemic. And that's basically pacing at 30 goals per. Went to an all-star game. He came back from the bubble, and it's a different Travis Konechny. It's like aliens abducted him. Yeah,
he does get some chances. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, he gets in. You'll see he'll get some chances around. You can say snake bit to a certain extent, but it's been too long.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you're talking about snakes on a plane. This ain't one
Yeah.
snake at this point. You've got a guy that I think he paid some. I give him credit for trying to play more of a overall game.
Hmm.
200 foot would be the cliche that you use, and he's kind of cut down on some of the dumb stuff that he used to do. But I don't see him getting in position as much as he should. There are the strafing runs that he'll make and come in, but he doesn't seem to be an effective threat off the rush, which is a big problem with the whole team anyway coming in.
Especially with his speed, he should be effective off the
That's
rush.
that's exactly what you should say, and say, well, where is it a chemistry issue? Where should he be placed to be most effective? And it doesn't seem to matter because you put him here, you put him there, you put him on a power play, whatever, and it doesn't seem to matter that he isn't getting that shot off the rush. And sometimes the high danger zone chances are a bit misleading, even if they are technically a danger zone. But if there's no movement with it, it's not as high danger. So I think that he has no chemistry with anybody right now, and I think that's something that I don't know how you fix that. And I don't know if his confidence goes away. It doesn't appear to. I mean, he'll get shots, and he'll get late in games. He'll get shots to get you back in, and that's the one nugget that you have to unlock with this team. I don't know that I've seen so many teams that when they pull the goalie, usually you pull the goalie, it's kind of 40%, 30%, you have a chance. And the other side has a much greater chance. But the Flyers, man, they generate so much
Yeah.
when there's whatever element there is to the very end of the game. And it's not just sheer energy or whatever. It's a willingness to do things, to take chances that they don't appear to have during the course of a regular game, the regular part of a game. You pull a goalie with the Fly, my God, that's why you can take a chance with 17 minutes left or whatever in a game to do that. I mean, they're so effective with it, but it isn't there. There isn't that.
What is that, desperation?
But it's got to be a little more than that. I mean, desperation. I think it's confidence to be able to do it. Chemistry to be able to do it.
Willingness?
Riskiness, and to trust your defense.
Yeah.
And then if something happens, you can trust your goalies.
Yeah.
That absolutely, you can trust your goalies, but it isn't the goalies that are an issue. What happens is you'll see just an awful defensive mistake. I mean, you look at forwards. There was a game Kevin Hayes and somebody else up front was a -5. And I know plus minus is hardly the benchmark anymore, but it's still a pretty glaring number. But if you go back and watch, I mean, it was defensive pairings that hurt you, and much more than sloppy play to get a couple of forwards -5. So I think
him and JVR.
Yeah, JVR.
Yeah, another guy that runs hot and runs cold, and he can play an entire game. Like the other night, he played an entire game against the Sharks. I didn't even know he was in the lineup until the third period, and he scored 2 goals. They ended up losing anyway, but
the only 2 shots of that period, I think that at that point.
Yeah, and the second one kind of hits off him when Cam York gets that puck to the net. What have you seen out of York? Because Al, to me, he looks really ready. Because it doesn't look to me. I always judge young players, whether it's goalies or even young players, especially defensemen, by kind of looking at their heart rate, their beats per minute. Do they look frenetic? Do they look like the game's moving really fast? He doesn't look it. He looks like it's slowed down. He is as chill, California chill as they come. He's constantly moving, making himself an option for whoever has the puck. What have you seen out of Cam York? Does he look ready for you?
Yeah, right. Well,
there's some defensive things there, but
on this team, he looks.
Yeah.
You don't want to push a young defenseman because then you can go too fast. But yeah, he does. He actually, ironically, looks like he has more sense of pace than anybody on the team right now. I mean, you're dealing with be really honest. You've got Yandel, you've got York. Which Y are you going to go with?
Yeah.
The question is why go with Yandel much longer than after the streak that he gets, or the Iron Man thing. But no, I think if they were considering him for a temporary work visa, I think he's got himself a passport
Yeah.
from what I've seen here. And that's not even saying you have to use them that many minutes. That they, if everything works out, if Ellis is healthy, you should be able to manage minutes. The problem there would be, as you get into bigger games, this climb that a young defenseman makes, it'll plateau and there'll be a valley coming up.
Yeah.
But if for long term, I mean, I like what I see. You gotta be careful though, especially with this team's history. With boy, this guy looks good, and then Sanheim looks really good, and Myers, and then whoa, what happened? So that is a risky thing. And for all the criticism of what Hextall did in the past, I do agree with a lot of seasoning coming up, that you need a lot of it. But if this season turns into, it's going to be a tough go to make the playoffs. I really do think he'd be far better served to be here with this team this year.
Yeah, make the mistakes now at the NHL level so that when you're playing meaningful games in a following season, you're not making those mistakes. And the other thing with York too is, and Yandel, obviously, he's going to get the Iron Man streak as long as. I mean, it's amazing that this guy has stayed out of COVID protocol and to be able to set this right. Look, he may not hold it long because Phil Kessel's knocking on his door, and Yandel's going to come out after he gets the streak, and eventually Kessel will likely pass him, which is amazing because Kessel looks like the biggest off the ice, one of the biggest slobs.
Yeah,
you would never believe he's a pro athlete, but the guy's just a freaking stud.
Yeah, you're never going to have PK12 as a regimen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But I mean, that's the thing with Yandel. I mean, if you're going through all this and then the record's broken in 2 weeks, like, what was all that about?
Yeah, this big celebration.
But I mean, with him, I think it goes further than just the number. I mean, there is something to a locker room that he's a very popular player.
Yeah.
Wherever he's been. And I do think the damage you had to consider this coming in. You had to know coming in that this was part of the deal, which is why, frankly, I wondered when they got him. I mean, you lost Ghost, and I know Ghost is having a good year, bad team, good year. Sometimes I don't know how to judge that. I know here he made a lot of mistakes that Yandel's making, and Yandel's making a lot less money. But you wonder if, and I know this will go, and people go, what are you talking about? But, you would see what Carolina getting D'Angelo, who maybe, I'm just talking about on the ice. Whatever happens out, outside, I don't know. But I do know that if you really just look at on the ice value, defensemen, what they do, boy, he's added a whole lot more. And I guess because Rod Brindamore is the coach, you can maybe take that chance, a risky character. And I don't even know that I would take the chance with him. I mean, it would have been a real tough conversation. But if you just want to look at production on the ice, what you do, what you add, it's been a pretty darn good addition in Carolina.
Yeah, they let Dougie Hamilton walk. He's replaced his numbers and some.
Yeah, I know. But
how about that?
You're wondering, how long will this last? You're always on eggshell.
Yep.
It's just a nervous breakdown for a GM waiting, but right, looking good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is one of those things where you're going, when's the bottom going to fall out?
Yes, just keep them off the social media and keep just play. Just play. That's it.
You surprised that Alain Vigneault is not here anymore?
It's funny when the when the season started, I said that, well, here's what I'm pretty sure of. By Christmas, one of the two coaches in Pennsylvania will be fired.
And Sullivan ain't going anywhere.
And I remember texting Rick Talkin and saying, don't do anything after you didn't get the Rangers thing or whatever. I said, don't do anything. There could be an opening in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then this thing happened. I'm not surprised with the way things went that they had to make a change.
Yeah.
I am surprised that they didn't play better, originally, but the fact that they, he's a pretty good coach. And I thought with the practice time, see, that was the big mantra last year, with all but then they had practice time and you couldn't complain about it. And they just didn't have any cohesion. So I guess it was a case of, and the other thing was, the reason I said it was, I understand that people like a coach that can use criticism. But you got to understand, you can't. Even at at my age, I'm supposed to be the guy yelling, "Yeah, be tough, be tough." But it doesn't work that way. I deal with kids. It just you're ridiculous if you think you can coach like that anymore. And
No.
I thought it was a risky thing. You can criticize one guy, maybe two guys, and rightfully so. I mean, bench guys, Konechny benched, Ghost, whatever. But if it becomes too many, then you got the one guy sitting next to you. When one guy's unhappy, it's like, yeah, it's okay. You listen to him, and it's like, yeah, but I'm doing okay. But then if the guy on the other side of you is complaining, and then the guy across from you, well, now you get problems. And if
Yeah.
one of those guys happens to wear big pads and a mask, then you get real problems.
Yep.
So I guess I could see this sort of coming with what was going on. I thought it was curious the way he dealt with Carter Hart last year. Just I mean, it's just stuff. Just the way it was said was there's a bit of arrogance to it, but he's the coach and he's got a hell of a track record. But I thought, man, it's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
And
It was odd.
it was, and I'm like, I don't know if it flies. I mean, and the value he had was he had a ton of money already guaranteed, right?
Yep.
Why would you change a whole lot? A ton
Yeah.
of money guaranteed, and I think that certain players on that team just had stopped listening, and
Yeah.
and that went away, and now we'll see what happens. I actually thought Tortorella would be. That's funny. I'm saying don't criticize and bring in Tortorella, but I think Torts is a bit different than that. We kind of
His players love him.
yeah, when he's there, he's right in your face. There's some humor to it, if you will. And then when it goes off, it just goes off. I mean, there's no slow build up to it when it just happens. But we'll see what happens with Mike Yo. But I will say he did address the biggest issue to me was the lack of what looked like five guys on the ice, knowing where the other guy was going to be for a while.
Yeah, and having a strategic plan that they're all on the same page with. The funny thing about Torts is, when you look at coaches and you go, the average shelf life of an NHL coach is about 3 years. But Torts spent 7 years in Tampa. He spent, I think, 5 years in New York, tough market, and then he spent 6 years in Columbus. So it's not like he goes in and burns so hot that he burns himself out quick. I think if you got the right team, and I don't think a young team going through a rebuild is the right team for him. But I think if you have a team that's on a quick retool and you're trying to win now, I think he's the right guy. Yeah. Because, he will get guys to play. And what he does, Al, with all that bullshit that he does with the media and everything, is he makes himself the enemy, and it takes it off his players. And they love that element.
Yeah. Look what he did with the Zegras goal, the Michigan. He goes out, and then he kind of back, but it's all about him. And and I don't think Zegras thinks any. I don't even know if Zegras knows who anybody is outside of
Sonny Milano.
I don't even know, but I mean, I think he could come in. The question I would have is, honestly, ask yourself if you were a guy that had coached in the NHL and maybe would have options here and there. What's happened to the Flyers this year? Would it be an attractive spot right now for you?
Yeah, and look at what's coming, what they have, young. It's a young man's league. I don't know, Al.
Would it be, at the beginning of the year, you would say, you know what? It's funny because when Hextall left, it was like, boy, that's a great spot to go. Look at the young guys they've got coming up. Look at these prospects they've got coming up. Look at the goaltender they've got. When you've got this kid in goal, this should be like, I'm going to go there because, goaltender, he wins somebody a Selke, he wins a coach of the year, and he wins a GM of the year, all by being the goaltender.
Yeah.
That should happen. But you've got so many question marks out in front of him. I don't know anymore. And plus now with, there's a Giroux thing hanging over your head with what's going to happen to him at the end of the year. And is Couturier really going to be healthy here? And what about Ellis? What's happened so quickly went from, I thought if it was a stock, this team, you would have bought it in October. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, man, a lot of people are shorting. Yeah, a lot of people are shorting this thing right now. And that may be an overreaction, despite the fact that most games are played, you cannot deny that this COVID situation has just disrupted so many things on what's done, who plays, when they come back, what they're worried about, all of that. And so that's why I wouldn't say, oh well, all hope is lost. That's why I would say, you know what, this is a really, really still unusual situation, and you have the basis here with the goaltender and some young players. But I don't, is there a key to unlock Konechny to be what he's supposed to be? Sanheim, Provorov, that's the thing, and that's where I think they're looking at. Is Yo going to be the guy? Who's going to be the guy? Whether it's an assistant that comes in, whether it's a veteran player that comes in and does
Well,
it.
Luke Richardson is an assistant in Ottawa type thing.
Yeah, whether it's I know most fans, a lot of fans are like, well, once if Giroux gets moved, everything will change. Well, what really?
It'll be worse.
Well, I don't know. I mean, and I understand. It's been a strange goal for him, in terms of you make your bones in the playoffs. But man, guy plays every night virtually. I mean, I get this COVID thing, but I mean, when you really look at it, how many for a guy that plays that hard to play literally every game, to come in and play take every tough face off on one side, to always be the guy that's leaned on. I think fans make too much out of the C.
I do too.
And I don't inside a locker room anymore. Is that C that crucial? I mean, in the past it has been, and it can be.
I think that ended in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, may have. I mean, it can be, but I don't know. But when your whole focus is on it, I think it does. When your fan base is looking at it that way, I think that it can feel like cement.
Yeah.
when it's like what's happening. Because for as many criticisms as you can throw his way, I don't think there's any lack of it's my team and I'm disappointed. We disappointed people. I definitely see that, and I don't see any give up in it. And like I said, at the end of games, when you got to have it, who's over the boards, and more often than not, winning a faceoff to get something set up. So, but I mean, if that's what this is where I think you might be headed in terms of, well, the fans will look at it as like, there's the chemistry change that we needed. I'm not so sure that that's it, but I'm pretty convinced that if this doesn't turn around over the next couple of months, that's where you're going to be headed.
Yeah, I think that the math looks too difficult for me for them to be a playoff team with the games in hand.
Yeah, because when you run the standings, NHL standings they're like the Bible anyway. You get out of it what you want before the end of the season. Games in hand. But with this whole COVID thing, they really should be run by percentage. So when you look at the Flyers behind the Bruins by 6 or whatever, but one team's playing 600, one team's playing 500. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference. So that's where I'm looking at it in terms of that. I mean, there is some ground here to, maybe, and I'm looking even behind. I'm looking at the Islanders all of a sudden have 300 home games.
Yeah.
And
they're getting it together.
And they're starting to get it together. So I thought it would be a little bit easy because I didn't think the Rangers would be where they are. I actually didn't. Early in the year, even though the Rangers were playing well, I didn't believe in it. Now I'm like, well, the goaltending is really good. Now the other guy's playing good too. So the goaltending is really good. That kid, the Fox, is just sensational.
Ridiculous, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like, and that's where when you look at the Flyers, it's like, all right, we drafted this guy's okay, this guy's solid, but where's your star quality?
Yeah, where's that electric player that gets your ass out of the seat?
Well, yeah, when I see an ad and I see the mascot, I'm like, that in many cases that would be the draw, the star, the McDavid, the whomever. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of where I think they're lacking. Like, well, we got this, so-and-so is going to come on the ice. So when Giroux isn't that player and that electric player, just doesn't happen. And that's where I think when you look at all the drafts that they have, where was where's that guy? You don't have it to score goals.
Yeah, like you brought up Zegras and like that play that Zegras makes to Sonny Milano. And while I have a problem with that from the goaltender union perspective, I don't want guys swinging their sticks head high. But Like that play, like I see like those kind of teams and those players littered through the league, and I don't see it here. So let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about what Bob Clark said on the Cam and Strick podcast, because he laid out Hexie pretty good, and
Yeah.
I thought it was odd because I'm going, okay, I always consider what somebody says, and I go, well, what's the motivation, right? You got to consider that part of it. And the only thing I can come up with is frustration about where the team is right now. And look, general managers miss on first round picks. They miss on second and third round picks. And there's some high profile names back to that 2017 draft where Nolan Patrick was taken second after Nico Hischier. Right after that, Dallas grabs Miro Heiskanen. Turns out to be a really good player, just got extended for huge dollars in Dallas. Then you look at number 4. Well, 4 was Cale Makar, and then Pettersson comes at 5.
Yeah.
So you look at that draft and you go, wow, 3 players taken after Nolan Patrick. But, you go into that draft out, and Nolan Patrick has an NHL body. He's got every NHL skill. And, he had some injury history, and he had the core injury heading into that draft class. But he was a consensus top 2 pick. I mean, he was consensus number 1 until that he got hurt that year in Brandon. And they ended up taking him. In hindsight, it was the wrong move. But I was a little stunned that Clark went out and really laid out Hextall on it.
Yeah, I was stunned because, I mean, I've never seen a guy go top rope on another guy that was in your organization like that. Just land on him. And I think when I try to think of motivation, it's like in defense of what's happening now, the general manager, in defense of the front office now. Why are we where we are? Well, these pieces didn't work out. When you look, I have no doubt that some of the scouts wanted Makar. This probably happens everywhere.
Yep.
But I think this is being looked at in reverse. If he had not taken Nolan Patrick, it would have been considered going cowboy there. That would, like, this was chalk. They went chalk, and a whole lot of chalk, as I remember.
Yeah, Devils grab Hischier. It was a lock. You're taking
it's over.
Yep.
It's over. It's done. I mean, and I won't say that I'm discounting the fact that there were scouts that wanted him. I absolutely believe that. But if you're the general manager, yeah, that's it's your name on it. So as much as scouts have input, and they should, and you should listen to them, it's going to be considered Hextall's draft.
Yep.
Hextall's the one that took O'Brien. Hextall's the one that went cowboy later in rounds and didn't get people. Hextall the one that had that 2017 draft that's turned into such the disaster. So and it's also, I think Clark's point earlier was that he didn't listen about anything, and it carried over into the draft, and look what it cost us.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times Bob Clark would tell me, I really like Ron, but he needs a sounding board, and he doesn't use anything as a sounding board. He just thinks he can do it on his own. And I think that got transferred over to the draft. But that particular pick, man, I'll tell you, it looks dumb now with the 3 players taken afterwards, but it would have been a shock if they hadn't done that.
Yeah, Makar's playing junior A at that point. He's not even playing major.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I guess the point I would make is, well, if that scout's that good, he should be a GM then, right?
Yep. Yeah.
When you go out and hire another GM, get that scout or whomever, and they should be the general manager.
Now, how the hell did Makar never get made a forward? With the way he's able to play the game offensively, I mean, coaches got to be chomping at the bit to move him up at points.
Yeah, but you look at what's happened now, the way it's played. You can move up and just even quote slow teams. You have a defenseman lead the rush in and be the first man in and make a play or whatever. You see what happened with and look at San Jose. It's got guys that can just fly in. So I think, and you know what it's like when you get a defenseman that can play. It's like, oh God, just don't tell him he's a defenseman and let him play both.
Yeah, and don't tie his brain into a pretzel. Let him riff a little bit. He's going to make some mistakes, and there's going to be some liabilities there, but the good's going to far outweigh the bad. That's what happened with Ghost. The good didn't outweigh the bad.
No, Ghost made too many mistakes. The irony, I wanted Ghost up early because of the energy that he brought that first year, and I think that's where a lot of things went bad because they lived on that power play for a while. I think I used to call it the key of G, Ghost to Giroux. and
Yeah.
it just worked. It had chemistry, and then
Yep.
that stopped. And the funny thing with Gostisbehere, when you talk to fans, he had people thought he was fast because I guess because of he was running after people,
He's
but
shifty.
but he wasn't. That
No.
was part of the issue. He really
Yeah.
didn't have the wheels like that to make up for it, and he'd make so many mistakes and couldn't catch up and make up for them. High risk plays. But I will say, we were talking about the Flyers needing the electric forward. They need a forward like that, not a
Yeah.
defense, like a guy that I was hoping maybe Frost would do something like that. We saw a little bit of it, but we haven't for a long time. But that kind of you got to say this about Ghost. For as much as he'd make mistakes, when he got the puck, you said something could happen
Yeah.
because you go wheeling through. And I think there's an element there that the Flyers do need.
Yeah. I always said that Ghost was a dramatic hockey player.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people would tweet me and say, make him a winger. I go, when you find a board battle he's won, then I'll make him a winger. Until then, no thanks.
Oh, he'd go in and there'd be a big collision and it'd be the second guy there. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what happened.
Last thing for you, Al, because it's funny. I was throwing out some trade scenarios on my Flyers Daily podcast, and talking about an electric player, and I said, okay, I was half in jest, but you got to make the money match because dollar in, dollar out. And I go, okay, if the Leafs fail again in the playoffs this year, or when the Leafs fail in the playoffs in the first round this year, they're going to have to trade Marner. So I want Marner. So I'm going to go Provorov and Konechny to get, and a second round pick to get Mitch Marner. The money matches. And then because I lost Provorov, he's a left side defenseman, I'm then going to turn to Arizona and I'm going to get Jacob Chikrin out of Arizona, and I'm going to have to use a first round pick and maybe a Morgan Frost to do it.
Chikrin, you may have to get this year.
Yeah, because they may move him at the deadline.
That's the thing. If you're going to do that,
he's got 3 years after this signed though under contract.
He's a terrific player. I really like.
I agree.
Marner, I've been disappointed in, but it's hard to judge anything there.
Toronto.
But if they, they're playing really well, but Marner isn't. I don't know if there's enough. You get the puck enough or whatever with what's going on there. Yeah. I think he might be in play. I think Gaudreau might be in play too. Whatever.
Well, he's a free agent.
Whatever. Yeah, and then that, he's playing very well this year with Sutter as the coach. I thought last year really struggled a lot. So, I think that could possibly be a guy that they could get.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Al, I appreciate you doing this. As always, we'll be watching you on Friars pre- and post-game live on NBC Sports Philly, and listen to you on the radio as well. Thanks for doing this, man.
Anytime. Have a good one.
Thanks to Al Morganti for joining us on this episode of Stick to Hockey Live, presented by Parx Sportsbook. Love talking to Al, and make sure you download the Parx Sportsbook app. You'll get all the information you need right there. You'll get same-game parlays. You'll get the $500 risk-free bet just for sign-up. Just download the app. Or if you just want to go on your computer, if you're a little bit more old school, perhaps, go to parxcasino.com parxcasino.com/PA, and you get all the info right there as well. Very simple to use, and you'll enjoy same-game parlays. You'll enjoy, props and player performances, first to score, next to score, points in a game, all kinds of different player performance bonuses and stuff like that. And great stuff on there as well. Money lines, parlays, teasers. It's all there for you. So check out the Parx Sportsbook app. So simple to use, and you're going to love doing it. Again, no promo required. Just deposit. And if you lose, your first bet is risk-free. Risk-free. Up to $500. Any bet, your first bet, risk-free. So make sure you take advantage of that. And again, you don't need to put any promotional code in or anything like that. Just open up a Parx Sportsbook account and get involved and get in on the action with a great local company as well. And make sure you follow them on their social media channels at Parx Sportsbook, at Instagram, also on Facebook and YouTube as well. Great content there as well. But right now, it's time for a little something we like to call Tone's Takes. That's right. It's time to make some money for everybody. There he is. Tone, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Jason? How you doing?
Dude, is that a new addition in the background there? I see the NHL shield up there. You get that?
Yeah, got
the
a couple
silver
different.
award?
Yeah, got a couple different things in a little bar area here. It's my Flyers, a little
Nice.
setup there. So.
Good on you, man. That's called set dressing.
Yeah, that's right.
That must be Dave Mazzoni setting up the dressing there.
Funny story about Al and me and Dave with Al. The early 2000s when the Flyers were playing one of the playoff series against Buffalo. I think it was one where they lost 8-0 in Game 6 against Buffalo. They had the home ice advantage. I think we were at Game 2 when they lost. I think they lost 3-2 in overtime. It could be a different series. It was somewhere in the early 2000s. They played them a few times. We saw Morgani in the parking lot. So I was not a smart bettor at the time. So I said to him, "Hey Al, what do you like in this game?" He's like, "I like Buffalo in the under, but you'd be nuts to bet this series." So what did I do? I took the Flyers in the over. So just a little funny story
Did you
about
slam
Al.
it?
Maybe he gets something. Maybe nah, it was 3-2 Buffalo won in overtime. So
Damn, Al actually knew what he was talking about. That's a rarity indeed.
Yeah. So we did get some Al takes on the show or something,
Yeah, Morgani's picks. Here's the stats on your season so far, and tonight's plays we'll get to. Year to date, props 107-98 plus 20.66 units. Sides 39, 43, and 5, but plus 3.36 units. So a total of 51 and 45 and 13 plus 5.21. So overall 197, 186, and 18 plus 29 plus units. How about those numbers? Man, I love it. You're on fire.
It's been a good ride. A little bit of a down week last week, but it's got to keep plugging along.
Well,
Gotta
let's
keep
start.
grinding.
Let's start with the Orange and Black because they're finally back tonight. They had the game postponed Tuesday, Tone, against Carolina. That was a bit of a blessing for them, at least from, they get some bodies back. Giroux's back, Konechny's back, Sanheim's back, Provorov's back, Braun. They got all these guys coming back. They lose Ristolainen, but the Flyers right now, the over tonight, looking at even money at over 6 in this game tonight. And we've seen this, Tone, when teams haven't played a lot, that these games are really punching to the over on the ticket.
Yeah, especially with the way Boston is going right now.
Mhm.
They're averaging 4.71 goals per game since the break. These teams met twice in Philly. 9 and 7 goals were the totals. Tuukka Rask is back tonight for Boston. He wasn't able to get any game action in the AHL. I think they were scheduled to play the Phantoms a couple games, but it got postponed to COVID. So he's just had practice time. So could be a little bit rusty. Hart's going for tonight. He just got lit up by Boston last year. 23 goals in 5 games. He has a 3.74 goals against and a .879 save percentage in his career against Boston. So I like the over tonight, especially the way the Bruins have been scoring goals lately.
Yeah, that Rask factor is a big one. He's got good numbers against the Flyers, but that's a big factor because he hasn't played in so long. And you're right, he was supposed to get those 2 games this weekend with Providence, the Providence Bruins. Didn't happen. They said, all right, we're just going to recall him. He's coming to the NHL. And we'll see if that's something that could perhaps even upset the apple cart. I mean, they were getting good goaltending from Swayman and Olmark, but we'll see how that plays out. I mean, you're getting a guy in Rask in there, and if he is what he was, then they're going to be just fine. The Islanders are a team playing much better hockey right now. They had that 13-game road trip to begin the season, and they were kind of all over the country as well during that trip. Even when they opened up the new building, they still weren't playing well, but now we're starting to see some signs that the Islanders may be a team that is going to be reckoned with. They got a lot of work to do, got games to make up, but minus 129 tonight against the Devils. You like the Isles tonight?
Yeah, Isles in regulation. If there's any team that needed a break, it's this team with all the games that they played and opening up the new arena, and they really couldn't get going. They were in a similar spot earlier in the season against Buffalo. It was actually on New Year's Day they played them, and they hadn't played since I think the 19th maybe, and they beat them 4-1. So I think with the practice time now that they've been able to get in. I know Trotz is in the protocol, but I mean the coaching staff knows what they're doing with that team. I think you're going to see a solid defensive effort tonight. Devils are missing a ton of key players. Hamilton's out, Sever's out, Brad's out. Blackwood is
Miles
out,
Wood.
who hasn't been
Yeah.
yeah, Miles Wood. Blackwood is out, who hasn't been good this year. John Gillies is getting the start in net. He's given up 6 goals in 2 starts this year. So I think the Islanders can handle business in regulation tonight.
Yeah, and of course, you look at the Devils. No Mackenzie Blackwood, who, like you said, has not been good this year. And they make that signing in the offseason, and they grab Jonathan Bernier, but he is not available as well. So interesting situation. Let's look at a player prop tonight. Matt Duchene at over 2.5 shots on goal. For Duchene, this looks like a slam dunk to me.
Yeah, Buffalo gives up a ton of shots per game,
Yep.
36.9. Duchene averages 2.75. He's hit this in 4 of his last 5 home games. He's tied for second on the team with 91 shots. Has a shot rate of 62%. He has 146 attempts. And the Sabres, a thing I like to look at too when going on shot on goal props is, does the team block shots? Sabres don't. They're the second least block shots in the NHL.
Wow.
So the way Duchene is going, I think when he scored 2 goals the other night, I think he had like 6 or so shots on goal against Colorado. He's had a resurgence this year, so I like this player prop tonight.
Yeah, and the thing is with Duchene, that game against Colorado, it's one of his former teams, and then he pots 2. So then he comes into this game against Buffalo. He's feeling it. If he's feeling it, he's going to do everything he can to get pucks to the net. That's why this is a great play by you. 2 things that I loved about this play that you mentioned. A, Buffalo's got the second fewest blocked shots in the league, and you got a player coming off playing his former team, potting 2 and feeling it. And this is when a player like Duchene gets streaky, right? And when he's got confidence, he is going to fly pucks to the net against Buffalo tonight. I love it. I'm surprised it's only minus 105, to be honest with you.
Me too. That's why I kind of jumped on it. I was expecting it to be a little bit higher, but sometimes you can find value in some of these props. I don't know if the books don't really pay attention to them, especially now with football still going on. And you can definitely, if you do your homework, you can definitely get some good looks.
I totally agree with you. You find that flawed line, and that's where you slam them. So 3 plays tonight for Tone. We got the Flyers and Bruins playing the over 6 at even money. The Islanders at minus 129. This is a regulation win over the Devils. So you got to play this in regulation to get the minus 129. And then Matt Duchene over 2.5 shots on goal at minus $1.05 on the Parx Sportsbook app. And you can get all the action in there. Tone, as always, great stuff, man. Good luck this week. People should check out your Twitter handle at Tone's Takes. You can get all your plays right there. And make sure you give Tone a follow as well. And good luck this week, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right, there's Tone checking in for Tone's Takes, another edition. So make sure you grab the Sportsbook, the Parx Sportsbook app, and download it on your phone, iPhone, on your Android, easy to use. And if you do not have an account, even if you're using another service, it's time to move over to the Parx Sportsbook app, because new customers right now, and take any one of those 3 plays that Tone gave you, and I'll give them to you again in a second, but take any one of those 3 plays, make it your first play, and it's risk-free up to $500. You do not need any kind of promotional code, no promo required, just deposit, and if you lose, your bet is risk-free up to $500. You're not going to find a better deal this side of the Mississippi, people. So grab the Parx Sportsbook app and get in on the action and check it out, because you will not regret it. It's easy to use. It's a company. It's local. You can trust them. Easy to navigate, easy to deposit, easy to cash out, all of those things, and you will not regret it. So check it out. Download the Parx Sportsbook app and do so today. And give them a follow on their social media channels at Parx Sportsbook on Twitter, on Instagram. They're there as well. Facebook, YouTube. You're going to get great content at all those sites, so you're not going to regret it just from a content perspective. And then you're going to get daily specials and info, D-Line, Sixers stuff, and Natalie and Sam's content that they put out, Rich Gannon, and just awesome stuff. Mike Quick. I always check out the Mike Quick segment as well for everything Birds related. And, of course, they got a huge game coming up this weekend in the playoffs against Tampa. So make sure you check it out and follow all the social channels. Again, at Parx Sportsbook on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And we'll be back Monday. Flyers are back in action coming up, tonight, obviously, in Boston. And then they'll be back in action on Saturday against the New York Rangers. So we'll have another edition of Parx Sportsbook Presents Stick to Hockey Live on Monday. And Tuesday next week, we'll have another episode number 7 as Parx Sportsbook Presents the Odds podcast with myself and Harry Mays. If you missed any of those episodes, go back and check. We had a fun episode on Tuesday this week, and go back and check all those out. And then we'll be back Thursday with another Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. So there's a lot going on and a lot coming up. And if you're listening or viewing this podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave us a rating and review. We appreciate that. It'll help other Flyer fans and gambling fans and fans of sport find this podcast. And thanks for checking it out. And subscribe, leave us a rating and review. And let me give you Tone's takes one more time so you can get these in on the Parx Sportsbook app. Flyers in Boston over 6 at even money. The Islanders in regulation at -129 over the Devils. And then Matt Duchene over 2.5 shots on goal tonight against Buffalo, -105. Get those in on the Parx Sportsbook app. Everybody, have a great day. Enjoy your Thursday. Enjoy your hockey tonight. We'll talk to you on a Monday edition of Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. Have a great